Jesse Hart is an adventurous artist and traveler. This interview was truly one of the best that I've had so far for a multitude of reasons. We discussed mental and physical health and how that plays into our lives as flow artists. Jesse shared some wonderful stories about his successes and his troubles along the way of the journey that he's currently on. Jesse is a beautiful individual with so much to share. This interview ran really long because the conversation was so lively and solid. With that in mind, support us on Patreon to help us continue the podcast for just $5 a month. We have merch now available on our website. That link is listed down below. Welcome to the Poidcast and enjoy the episode, my friends. Jesse Hart, welcome to the Poidcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Great, Patrick. Thanks so much for having me on. It's a huge honor to be here with you and be amongst all these poi legends that I've been watching and listening to. I really am glad to be here.
Oh, man. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate that. And I'm sure the lineup before yourself, they appreciate hearing that as well. So to start off the podcast, first of all, tell us where you're at, man.
So it's first thing in the morning. It's not quite even first light here in Arusha, Tanzania, Africa.
Wow.
We're on the other side of the world from you right now.
It's 8:18 p.m. where we're at right now, and it's quite early for you.
Yeah, we're right on the equator, just south of the equator. Arusha is the city that's in between Mount Kilimanjaro, the biggest freestanding mountain in the world, the tallest point in Africa, and the Serengeti, where the largest migration, the Great Migration, happens.
So cool. What an honor to be interviewing folks from all over the world. This is new for us to be interviewing somebody in Africa. So beautiful episode. Very excited to get into things with you. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of your flow arts journey. How and when were you introduced to poi?
So I actually hail from, the United States over in Oregon. And I was studying abroad. So my travel journey and my poi journey are intimately connected. When I was studying at the University of Oregon, I had never left the Western United States. Like, I went to Alaska once, I went to Chicago once, that was different. But during college, I studied abroad in China, and that completely blew me away. I had never seen anything like it. I didn't realize that there were multiple worlds on one world. So long story short, I started getting really into traveling. And I was then introduced to the social network Couchsurfing. And my best friend and I in college, we took a 10,000-mile road trip all throughout Mexico to kind of test it out, to see how far we could go on how little of a budget. And one of our hosts in Colima, Mexico, down like couple hours west of Mexico City, our hosts, they took us out to a restaurant. And at that restaurant, they had a couple fire performers. And I'm pretty sure it was a couple, like a guy with a staff and a girl with poi. I have no idea who they are to this date. I don't have really any clear picture, like photographs to even reference. And I was just completely blown away. I was just like, wow, these people, what is this? Like, they must have had to go to some special school to learn how to do all this stuff. And this was back in 2008. But my poi journey didn't begin at that point. Again, there was nothing in my head that thought this is even within reach.
Yeah, sure.
A few years later, I'm couch surfing again in Auckland, New Zealand, where poi comes from, where poi originates from. And I'm in a couch surfer's house, and there's 3 Mexicans there, and they have a set of poi. And
No kidding.
They teach me and my girlfriend at the time a 3-beat weave. My first trick was a 3-beat weave, and I was just like, how, and I'm feeling that confusion in my brain for the first time. And but I didn't correlate it, because they had like they're almost like beanbag poi. They were like on strings, and they're attached to like this silk pouch with probably some, a ball of rice or a ball of beans or something in it. I wasn't sure. And I didn't connect the two together though yet. And that was 2011. 3 years after that, 2014, in my backyard in Southern Oregon, I'm at a party. And all of a sudden in the middle of the party, someone says, "Do you guys want a fire spin?" And I was like, and everyone's like, yeah. There's like 6 or 7 voices going like, yeah. And I was like, wait, are you guys about to do what I think you're about to do? And sure enough, we go into the backyard around the campfire with some acoustic guitar and drumming, and they proceed to pull out all their professional grade props and start fire spinning. And I'm just like, where do I sign up? Because this sort of stuff is right up my alley. I've kind of been like, I like to call it an adrenaline connoisseur for most of my life. It started as adrenaline junkie until I injured myself too many times. And I'm like, I got to go into this more carefully, but nonetheless, the thrill of it. So I found out that they had like a weekly jam meetup at a place called The Lodge in Grants Pass, Oregon, where my journey started. And my first teachee, Tracy Wilhelm, Tracer Ammo, he gave me my first set of sock poi. I was totally into it. Going once a week wasn't enough. So that's when I got on YouTube. That's when I found Nick. And then I bought my first pair of contact poi from Josh Tempest, and just proceeded to just go for it.
And just for clarification, Jesse means Nick Woolsey, just for the folks at home, just that need that clarification. But I mean, I'll say late 2000s, early 2010s, possibly, when you were kind of on the internet, which is a lot of the, where a lot of us folks that have been in the community for a long time have kind of picked up the online videos back on YouTube. So leads me to my next question. You would say your earliest and biggest inspirations in the poi community, you had Nick, and then you had a local friend. Anybody else that stands out to you as kind of an early inspiration for you?
So I was really going off of Nick Woolsey's tutorials from the get-go. I wouldn't say that I had, like, everybody who could manipulate these objects in ways in which my eyes couldn't follow and understand was kind of an inspiration to me. It steadily evolved. I've been going through these podcasts and taking notes, because I've been like considering, when you said like, let's do an interview together, I was like, oh, I'm going to make this the best. So I really considered, my whole history and how it related to everybody it was connected to. So obviously it started with Nick and Tracy and his friend Raphael, because they were just so good at it. And I never had comprehended that an object could be moved in such a way. But then when I started to get more into it and realized I would like to add this to my profession, I was a yoga teacher, but I was like, this really goes in very many ways hand in hand with yoga, but just with like something outside of yourself. So
absolutely,
when, I eventually Nick evolved in a way into Drex. I found Drex's stuff afterwards. And so since I was getting into content, I could tell like the quality of Nick's was good. It was like, he knew the stuff. He was in cool locations. He had a great personality, but the resolution wasn't so good. And you could tell it was kind of like, it got better over time. But then I found Drex. And when I found Drex, his stuff was like clearly like, I'm focusing on doing good content. Like, I'm going to be not just a professional poi spinner and teacher, but also a professional YouTuber.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of
Drex. Yeah, that's a fair distinction to make, because as much praise as I can give Nick as a teacher, as a person, and as much as I took from Nick, I think there's definitely a different level of the filming and quality aspect to the tutorials that Drex started making. And he definitely grew with the times a lot better as far as being on the internet. And Nick was kind of very like not that, if that makes sense. But yeah, continue. I very much like hearing that you found Drex's content kind of after Nick's, and just as many of us did.
Yeah, and I could tell, also from Nick and Drex's interview that you did with them, their personality coming through and understanding how that personality ended up shining through. Because it's one thing when you're in front of a camera and you're trained in front of a camera. It's a completely other thing when you're putting a part of your heart out there. So I see the emotional energy coming through. And, freaking Blex Drex, he's gone. I can relate, because I've gone through the ringer with the internet, hordes too, plenty of times. And it is an emotional workout, and you really have to have that stability internally and really love what you're doing in order to go through the ringer with all these people that you're doing your best to kind of draw the line of, where is this like a constructive critique in disguise that I can actually glean some value from? And where are the people just being mean just to be mean?
You know what, man? Drex takes a lot of shit, and if you follow him and you've followed him for a long time, you know that he does. And I'm not saying that he's always gotten off the right message at the way that he wants to say it.
No,
Like,
nor have I.
yeah, exactly. Like, neither have I have done the similar things in my life, and I want to take a moment to say shout out to Drex, man, because that guy has done an enormous amount for the community, and he does get a lot of shit. But like, we really need to pay some homage to the man and say thank you. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate that you said that.
I know he's about to go over 100,000 subscribers to his YouTube channel.
He
You know,
is. He
and
is. Congrats, dude.
like that's really amazing. So I say more power to him. Keep it going, Drex. And
I do too.
However you're creatively inspired, just keep putting the stuff out there. There's a
I
lot.
do too.
There's many more people who appreciate it versus people who ridicule it and get down on it.
I agree. Thank you for saying that. That was very nice to hear. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about. Let's go. I know this might be quite a jump from your early days of poi spinning to when this journey started. But tell us about the beginning of Full Circle Phenomenal. Tell us about when that started and what it's about.
So Full Circle Phenomenal, it began actually in 2012. I was going through the beginning stages of a divorce, and I was in like the most physically, mentally, emotionally upset, crazed state I've ever been in my life. So I'm also having like awakenings at the same time. I've been listening to like Alan Watts and spiritual speakers and stuff for some time. There was just an attraction and interest to that. So my mind and my emotions are being warped from the inside out. And then I'm also experiencing stuff of like the breakdown of my relationship, and I can't save it to save my life. So yoga, first of all, meditation came to me, but I couldn't meditate, at all. But when I was introduced to yoga and recognized, oh, it's not just something that you do to become more flexible and lean, it's actually a meditation to help you ground into your body. I immediately latched onto it because it helped keep my sanity throughout the whole process. And it was increasing my health physically, mentally, emotionally greatly. So I knew I just wanted to devote my life to it. And I started learning it intensely from 2012 to 2013, took my first student in 2013, and away we go with it. But it wasn't necessarily kind of enough. Like I wanted more to chew on. And so when poi and flow arts were introduced to me in 2014, and I realized there was no really like professional organized group or business in the area. There's stuff in Eugene, there's stuff in Portland, but not really anything that remained consistent in Southern Oregon. So I added it to my repertoire. I did like a professional show and got paid pretty decent. We got into a festival, early on. And I was like, perfect. Yoga and flow arts coming together. I'm going to devote myself to this completely for many, many years, if not the rest of my life, because I see this as an aspect of the solution of like human evolution and greater health. So I didn't necessarily do it just for the performance aspects of it. I love to be a performer, absolutely. But I really love to be a teacher and really love to enable people's greater physical, mental, and emotional health. And nothing does that to me better than yoga and flow arts combined.
Yeah, I love that. I really enjoy hearing that perspective very much. I think on this podcast, I'll say even we get caught up in performing and flow arts festivals and this and that and putting together acts and, but we get lost in sometimes in the original reasons that we're doing it. And I think that it is mental health practice. And I love hearing more talks about poi and, us developing and dedicating that portion of time of our day, of our week towards poi, because it really is a mental health practice, very much so like yoga or any of the other, physical things that we do to take care of ourselves. So I love hearing that. It's a beautiful perspective. And I there's definitely a huge place for that. And that's more often than not the reason that people do it in the first place. A lot of people don't get into it and start pursuing it heavily to be, a performer and be doing all these big shows and making money and stuff. A lot of it really just comes from the love of what we're doing, because it's good for us. So I very much appreciate hearing that perspective.
Yeah, I got to interview Dr. Kate Riegel Van West, which I think, at least as far to my knowledge, is the only doctor of flow arts. She actually got her doctorate in Auckland, New Zealand. She's from Kansas, but she got her doctorate in New Zealand, still lives there, I believe, and actually teaches poi with, like, for the medical field. Like, she's got actual case studies that show and prove how good poi is for your health. And I really hope to encourage that along. Like, we really got to encourage that stuff along, because I see poi spinners as super advanced, mentally as well as physically. And I'm sure anyone who takes it to the degree where they're putting themselves out there to the public online emotionally as well.
Absolutely. So with the beginning of Full Circle Phenomenal and your travels abroad, I know that poi and your travels are very much intertwined. So I'd love to hear more about your journey, because right now you're on a journey with your wife and your child, and you're going across Africa. And I want to hear about this specific journey and what the goal is, what the mission is. Give me some more details about how it started and how you've gotten to where you are right now.
So, yeah, the journey itself is called Unite the World Firsthand. That's kind of the phrase that came to us as we're recognizing that though the world is closer together than, as small as it's ever been, as accessible it's ever been, there's not necessarily people going outside of their comfort zone to actually experience the world. So they experience the world through movies, through TV, through basically someone else's point of view and someone else's editing of it. And a lot of people are afraid of the world still. They're afraid of what they don't understand, or what they think they understand, but really has just been fed to them, the little bits of like drama and war and all these traumatic circumstances, and making people want to reject the rest of the world. So Catherine and I, or rather before I met Catherine, I actually sought to go around the whole world with a motorcycle, with an on and off-road motorcycle, and I actually made 2 attempts to do it back in 2017, because I had done enough travels, after China, after Mexico, I just was going for it. So I would come home, save up money, and go travel. Spend the money, come home, save up, travel.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, I just want to do this indefinitely, and I want to do it in a way in which really sends a message out to the world that the world isn't so dangerous, and that it's actually really fun to interact and understand other cultures completely different than our own. And I want to share what I have, with it, and kind of mix together, because we have this great opportunity. We have this ability to travel with ease now as commoners, as you don't have to have any special funding or any special organization. You can just go. And everybody who ends up traveling ends up enjoying it immensely, no matter what happens, even through, and I noticed this, even through challenging and trying situations, which will happen. I found an interesting correlation that every single time I came back home and reflected upon those challenges, I was always like, those are kind of the best. Those were kind of the best circumstances and end up becoming the best stories. So I was like, I'm really going to challenge myself. I'm going to go out there on my KLR 650 and not come back. And so I left on Thanksgiving Day, 2017. And I ended up coming back because it was so challenging, to do it on my own. I didn't know how to make money on the road.
I'm sure, man.
Long story short, I met Catherine. We ended up forming a relationship. That relationship became professional. I was there when she first fire spun. I was actually her yoga teacher. She was actually seeking greater health benefits.
So tell me, where did you guys meet? What place did you meet in?
We met at what was called the Unity Open Heart Center in Grants Pass, which was a church, a non-denominational church that was based off of the Unity, like the branch of Christianity that's called Unity. And it was like, I'm not religious at all. I don't even really consider myself spiritual. I think most people would definitely consider me spiritual.
Interesting, dude. Jesse, you're throwing me some interesting twists right now. I like to hear it, man.
And I just sought the opportunity and I committed to it. So when Catherine came around, and I was also in the middle of like full expression. So for many years, there was a challenging time where I was just unleashing whatever I really thought and felt to be true, no matter how it rubbed people. And so since I was doing that, I was also humbling myself because I really rejected religion and Christianity. But this like church was like, there was enough synchronicities surrounding it, and it was comfortable enough of an organization that I was like, all right, I'll humble myself and I'll get involved in this congregation, the first ever congregation I'd ever been a part of. And I worked my ass off to get that thing going off the ground. It wasn't that popular of a place because it wasn't, a more non-denominational church. Technically, it wasn't a church because they didn't have a pastor even. So that's why it was called the Unity Open Heart Center. So Catherine came to me there with her partner at the time, and I actually taught them both yoga. I actually tried to keep her and her partner together because they were having issues. So I'm like, I'm trying to help them to love themselves and one another more. But it was like one person's really committed to getting their health better and one person is not so much. And when that happens, there's inevitably going to be a split.
That's life, man.
Yeah. That's and I told Catherine, I told both of them about this around the world journey that I was working towards. From the get-go. And so they knew about it. Catherine was really drawn to it because she had always wanted to travel and live abroad. Sure. And so, like I said, long story short, I could go into that forever, but a relationship was formed. We started working together. And then she had a horse and she sold her horse. I had the motorcycle. I sold the motorcycle. Together, we put the money together to buy a 1983 small as it can be Toyota pop-up camper. It's called a Toyota Santana. And we just hit the road January 21st of 2020. And we just went south.
Buddy.
And
what a great time to start it.
4 years ago now. 4 years ago, almost to date.
Oh my goodness.
We weren't married. We just went and we're just like, and I told her, I was like, this is going to be fraught, full of challenges. Are you ready for it? Are you ready to commit throughout the whole world? She had never been out of the United States, and she's driving around the world with me. And it's going actually better and better all the time. We're 4 years in, and we're in our 20th country. We literally covered all of Central and South America, and then shipped the truck and ourselves over from Montevideo, Uruguay, over to Durban, South Africa. And since then, we've driven across South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and now Tanzania.
Incredible. So, wow, I have a lot to ask you about the journey. And shout out to your wonderful partner for taking that venture with you. And
she'll really come on here at some point.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Whenever she wants to come say hi, she's more than welcome to pop in and say hi. But it was really, really a beautiful story to hear about the origin. And I've been keeping up with you semi throughout the years and seeing various YouTube videos and Facebook posts and here and there. So I've been like semi-informed about the trip, but it's been, just great and very inspiring to hear about your journey together and the commitment that you've had to the journey.
Thank you.
Yeah. So along this journey, tell us about some of the hard parts of the journey and maybe some good parts. What have been some ups and some downs along the way that you faced?
Sure. So obviously a lot of people, they associate travel as being really expensive. And it's not necessarily expensive. It all depends upon how far outside of your comfort zone you'll get. And so by far the biggest expense when you have a camper is going to be fuel and then obviously repairs on the truck. So when we got that 83 Toyota, it had been renovated, but it's a becoming 40-year-old truck. Now it's 41-year-old truck. And so naturally the paranoia with what a lot of people think about first and foremost is, what if it breaks down? Well, yeah, sure. It broke down. It definitely broke down.
It happened. Yeah.
Down in buttfuck Mexico where there's nothing around. Just like the middle of nowhere, Mexico. But then you get to experience true humanity through these problems. Yeah. We flagged like people over and they would pull over right away. I literally hopped onto to a guy's motorcycle who just pulled over to help us and rode to the nearest city on the back of his motorcycle, don't know the guy, to find the nearest mechanic who can come out and help us.
Wow.
So, okay. That honestly, breakdowns are not that big a deal. You kind of get used to it. First and foremost, the biggest challenge was COVID. We literally got to the Mexico-Guatemala border on March 14th, 2020, the day the quarantine started. And we got to the border and the people were like, I'm sorry, we just closed our borders. You're going to have to wait for a few weeks. And I was like, what is this?
What do you mean?
What am I going to do for a few weeks? We ended up, 6 months later, 7 months later.
My goodness.
Waiting in southern Mexico for the borders to open. Good morning, Prana. Oh, here's the little one. Come here.
We'll say hello. Jesse's beautiful family here. His tiny child. Hello.
Here's Prana.
Hello.
The deciding to have this happen was also a great challenge. The greatest challenge, I think.
No kidding.
Here's Catherine.
No kidding.
Too.
Hello, Catherine. Yeah, welcome. So this is Jesse's beautiful family.
Not on headphones, but that's okay.
Yeah. So welcome. We're very excited to have on the whole fam. Now tell us how old is your child now?
She just turned 2 days ago.
Oh my goodness, wonderful. So 2022. So you had, I'm very curious about hearing the story from getting over from Mexico to Guatemala. So tell us, like, what was that like? What was that time period like for you and your family, or for you and Catherine at that time? Because obviously your child wasn't there yet.
No, not yet. No, the child was, having a kid. I automatically associate was going to make this journey harder. So I was like, Catherine, we are not having a kid on this trip. So what ended up happening with COVID was, so Catherine and I, we practice yoga, food healing. We're very aware of our health. We had no fear whatsoever of the virus. So for the first 5 weeks, we're just sitting at the border waiting. We connected with someone through couch surfing once again, always an amazing social media platform. End up connecting with a couch surfer who agreed to host us at his family farm for us volunteering. And you'll see that if you watch a bunch of the Sacred Flow Art tutorials that we created. And that's kind of our consistent income. We just had a little bit of income coming because we got hired on by Sacred Flow Art. It's not actually our business. We worked with them. And so we're doing tutorials. We're sitting there waiting. We're volunteering our time in exchange for stay. And nothing's happening. So eventually we're like, okay, the border's not opening up anytime soon. Let's explore around Mexico and find another place where we can be a little more active. So we went up to Palenque. Everything was closed down there. We went over to San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas, Mexico, like the center of Chiapas, Mexico. Chiapas is a tropical state, but then San Cristobal is like up high in the mountains, like high elevation. And Chiapas is an interesting place in that they don't necessarily consider themselves part of Mexico. Like they don't listen to the Mexican government. So in San Cristobal, like over half the shops were still open. We found a circus school where we could teach at and perform at, and we just continued on with our momentum. So we adapted to life on the road. We adapted to Latin culture. Catherine learned Spanish. I learned some Spanish. And we trained our first fire spinning team from scratch in San Cristobal.
Wow.
Did our first 4-person choreography in downtown San Cristobal during the 5-6 months we were waiting for the border to reopen.
Wow.
And once it opened, we were like, and we tried because we had the objective. We wanted to be married down in Patagonia for the full solar eclipse in December of 2020, but we could not get through the border.
So goddamn romantic. I'm sorry, that's so cute. But anyway, so tell me about the how was the language barrier? You said that you were both learning a little bit of Spanish, but how was it having students and teaching them the vocabulary in English? Like, what was that like?
Okay, so we taught an assortment of different students. We actually taught a woman from Ireland, a guy from
Okay.
China, and two guys from Mexico.
Okay, cool.
Only one of them didn't speak any English.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we had to find ways of bridging the gap between explaining flow arts in English to explaining flow arts in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, a lot of it is body language. And I learned this from my travels. A lot of what we get across as human beings is not verbal, but actually energetic and through body language. So
So
since I had,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry. I don't even mean to cut you off, Jesse. That was very rude. I want to tell you, like, I want to squeeze in a quick 1 minute story just while we're on the
yeah,
topic. So for those
of
of you who
course.
don't know, this is a very rare Patrick story right now. All right. So I lived in I lived in Japan for about 5 months, and I was actually dating a girl over there that did not speak any English, and I did not speak any Japanese. So it was I very much resonate with that type of just relationship, to where you're kind of building a relationship based off of feelings and emotions, and kind of trying to
Mm.
bridge past the verbal communication, and have fun in nonverbal, and being able to communicate things that are not in your language. So I love that. I love hearing about that. So sorry, continue about that story. I just had to slip that in there really quick, just for some context of my own life.
Yeah, and it is very intimate because you both know that you both don't understand, and you're humbling yourself to do whatever you can do to get the person to understand a little bit more. So it's a very unique opportunity for me to understand how to teach poi when you can't really communicate what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
we got everybody to fire spin. It ended up being perfectly successful, exchange all around. Um, and yeah, it was a precursor for a lot of things. We've since trained other fire spinning teams and over 50 people now to fire spin, like from scratch, around the world, from like 20, 21 different
Wow.
countries now.
Wow. That
And
is
not
so
always.
impressive and so wonderful. I'm just That's great. What an achievement. What a journey. That's
Thanks.
fantastic to hear.
Thanks.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
it's definitely warms my heart to know that I've assisted in the flow arts growth in a lot of places around the world where it's not so popular.
Yeah,
It has.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
so
some
popular in Central and South America, and
mhm.
pretty much unheard of in Africa. So, but it's pretty cool though, is when you're performing. Catherine and I, we're fairly advanced flow artists, nothing like a lot of the legends that you have on this show, but it's enough. And doing like partner poi and all the different props that we do, it blows people's minds. Like it's wonderful to have that really fresh experience where people have never seen anything
Mhm.
like this before.
Yeah.
And so feeling very proud of ourselves, but also you really get the hype from people, like especially in Namibia. For some reason, Namibia, every single audience that we had was just gung ho about it, like for the whole show. Like the whole time, like we felt like rock stars. It was just like, wow, this is a really wonderful experience, and thus it attracted a lot of people. So we've had quite a few students throughout the many countries.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, people that have never experienced anything like that, and they get to see, somebody who's quite good. You talk about yourself in a fashion of, like, compared to, the whole grand scheme of things, like, technical ability sure might not be like, the craziest whatever, but like you're very skilled, and you've been pursuing the craft for a long time. You're very knowledgeable and have so much to add, as far as a teacher and even a performer. I mean, you're a wonderful spinner, so I'm sure that was really exciting for the community and for folks who to see something that they've never seen before and seen anybody do it before. So, um, what were some difficulties and successes that you had about teaching students who have never seen it before? You've taught a lot of beginners. I mean, you've started ground level with a lot of people. So tell us about that struggle and that journey.
So a lot of people, myself included, I grew up playing soccer. So I didn't really have very much hand-eye coordination. I was mostly, good with my foot and my leg. So I could relate to not necessarily having that dexterity, as a lot of my students didn't, And from learning from so many different awesome teachers in person and online, and then learning about teaching from my students in Grants Pass. I had a team in Grants Pass and a handful of students. And then also teaching the Sacred Flow Art tutorials and learning about how to teach someone that's not even there. And I started to really break down the feeling, not just the feeling of the poi and the maneuverability of it, but kind of the psychological aspects that you go through that we don't necessarily talk about because it precursors, it's before the actual movement. It's the nervousness. It's the lack of self-confidence. It's the knowing that you suck at something. It's the knowing that you're going to hit yourself at something. How to get people past that. And all you got to do fundamentally is, first of all, have tremendous amount of patience, learn how to keep up enthusiasm, and celebrate small victories. So I have a system now after teaching so many people. Like, I can get anybody to be able to fire spin quite well in 3 to 4 weeks. And it took me a couple months because I've learned about how people learn. And human beings who don't have a lot of coordination, they learn through baby steps. And they try to get carried away with it, right? When you first start pick up the poi, you swing it like it's, like it's something very foreign to yourself. And you add too much energy and you try to show off or you try to do something, you hit yourself, you're humbled. And depending upon where you hit yourself or how often you hit yourself, maybe you're feeling a little humiliated.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I had to learn how to get people to lower their guard down and recognize, even though, yes, this is much harder than I or anybody that you've ever seen makes it appear. When we do it and we've been trained our muscle memory for X amount of years, it ends up becoming as easy as moving our arm because it feels like an extension of our arm. But when people aren't used to knowing where their arms are or that their arm can move in so many ways, the motor skills, the new motor skills just simply aren't there. And so I tell them that. I'm like, you've never done this before. You've never moved your body and an object in this way before. Therefore, your nervous system just simply is not there yet. It's not built yet. And so your confusion, your frustration, that's just the energy hitting the walls of your nervous system and trying to spread, trying to figure this thing out. So we just do it simple, like penduluming, or just a basic orbit, just basic hull planes or wall planes or split time. And then wherever that person's at, we're just like, good, okay. One more little baby step on top of that. I don't teach people the 3-beat weave immediately. That's like lesson 3, or something. If lesson 3.
Right.
And so we just build up because I've been able to study, okay, this is the foundation, that stacks on top of that, that stacks on top of that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And and then you just steadily build the momentum to the point where you're in my level where you feel like you can handle just about anything. Some things, of course, are going to take you a lot longer than others, but
Obviously.
Now you're used to the confusion, you're used to the head games and the emotional games that you play with yourself. And it's almost like you see it coming, so therefore it doesn't bother you as much, which helps to increase your learning curve.
Absolutely. And learning is a skill. And so you talking about the skill of teaching as well and learning how people learn, right? So that's a very important thing as a teacher to be able to convey that across many different types of students, because there's, the more you teach people, the more you realize that people learn very differently. So you kind of have to have like a broad enough way of teaching people that it can apply to different folks, and you have different ways of teaching them, so
Totally.
I can tell you're a wonderful teacher already just by hearing that from you. I'm like, this guy's good.
Well, with the yoga and the meditation as the foundation of Full Circle Phenomenal, I teach people how to essentially learn how to calm themselves down. Because if I could get someone to calm themselves down and just look at what I'm doing and visualize what I'm doing as if they were doing it. I know that half of our flow arts journey comes through like the mental plane. If you can see yourself doing it, that means it's already happening. It's already there. Now it's just a matter of, will you let it happen? Will you flow into it? Because that's the fundamental thing about flow arts. It's not forced arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's flow
Yeah.
arts. So you're teaching people about how to flow into their body. Because then you start, when it clicks, you're like, oh, the poi just kind of wants to do that. That's interesting. Yeah. Whereas when I was trying to force it, it wasn't happening for me.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to tell people, because I'm like, on one hand, I'm teaching you how to do it, but on the other hand, you're just going to do it. It's just going to happen. And that's a hard concept for people using their rational mind to understand. Mm-hmm. But then when it clicks, they're like, oh, and then they get this huge feeling of bliss in the middle of the end of their frustration, when all they had to do is let it happen, let it click, trust themselves that they know this, that the geometry is there. And all you had to do was discover it, like let it be discovered.
Right. Yeah. And very, very well said. I appreciate hearing that broken down in ways that I couldn't have quite verbalized myself. So I want to finish the journey here in a few moments. We'll get into it on the later half of the episode, because I definitely want to hear more about it, but I want to break it up a little bit. So let's get into some of your favorite YouTube videos, and we'll start going through some of the reference videos that you sent me to break up your story a little bit, because like I said, I definitely want to hear more about it. But let's get into some of the videos that have inspired you the most, and the ones that you sent over as your references. And might I say, just really quick, before you say anything about this video, this is the first time that I saw Wojta way back in the day, way back in 2013, right when this video was first released. And man, this video got a ton of traction way back in the day. First of all, because of the new tech in poi spinning, I forget what model those are, but it was obviously his spinning is phenomenal in this video, and it always has been. Wojta's an extremely, incredibly talented young man in this video. Look how young and cute he is. Oh my God, I love this man. Shout out to Wojta. I hope you see this. Yeah, fuck yeah. I don't know. He must have been, 2013. I'm guessing, I don't want to age him here. I'm guessing that he must have been like 20?
No way.
Between 18 and 20, maybe. I don't know.
I bet you
that old?
I'm pretty sure he's a teenager.
He could have been like 18, 17, 18. I don't know. But yeah, fuck yeah. So just real quick, sorry I rambled about that video. I fucking love that guy. That's my boy right there. But what stood out to you about that video?
So when I was choosing some videos for this interview, I went back because I was like, that's the earliest video that I can remember seeing. First of all, visual poi. I had never seen visual poi before.
Of course.
But also, more importantly, a choreography. Like, you can't listen to the music, but he's doing it to The Future Is Now by Grizz. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember, but I can't remember when I became a fan of Grizz, but some part of me wonders, did this start my not just my fandom with poi choreographies, but also with the musician, the DJ Grizz.
Totally.
The combination of the music, the visual poi I'd never seen, and then the advanced tricks to the beat, to the rhythm, I was like, yeah, that's it. Like, that's what I want to do. That's my objective. And I didn't know who Wojta was, and I didn't put it together that this was Wojta until later on, when I started to get more into understanding who's who was what in flow arts.
That's my guy. Yeah, wonderful individual. Just quick shout out, if you want to know more about Wojta, go back and watch his episode. It was beautiful. It was one of my most inspiring interviews as a host that I've done.
Yeah, so what far. A pro. What a pro.
Oh my gosh. He's such a genuine dude too. Like,
I'm going to have to find him when I get to Europe for sure. And I've never been to the Czech Republic, and I hope he's there. Or maybe he's down in Sicily or down in Italy.
He travels a lot. A lot. He's a full-time guy as far as artist and musician. And I mean, he's just so incredibly multi-talented. He takes trips to Guatemala, for retreats. He runs just several things throughout the world, which is just so inspiring. So if you want to know more about a story, go check out his episode. It's, again, one of my favorites. Let's get into the next video that you sent us, because I'm really excited to discuss this next one here. We have another classic, of course. We have Sacred Valley by Nick, and god damn it, what a wholesome video, dude. Nick, this is like near prime content that Nick was releasing at this time, because he took a break from content creation, which I totally understand, because he was holding that shit on his back for a long time. But this is a wonderful video where he's just in a valley approaching sunset here, and he has some visual poi, a wonderful little dog, and he's about to just spin for like 20 minutes. So this video is a long one. We'll let it play for a moment here. We'll just leave Nick's cute, wonderful face here, just talking about what he's about to do.
So
saying what's up. He's saying what's up. He's like, hey everybody, we're about to have some fun here. You know, he's just setting the scene, setting the mood. So Jesse, why did you like this video so much?
So when I was learning from Nick and going through his tutorials on the PlayPoi channel, I came across this one, and once again with the visual poi, and this one's done a little differently than Wojta's, where it's not choreographed, but he's just feeling his body together with the space, with the energy, with the music, as it were, and he's traveling, and he's in this beautiful area, and I just I could feel or empathize something with the traveling aspect. And so I sought to be able to do something like this, and all of this together, and put some of these tricks. When I first saw this, I wasn't able to recognize still a lot of the stuff that he was doing, but this was like when I was doing all of his classes and all the tutorials, I steadily put together more and more, and like, oh, he's doing that, and now he's doing that, and this helped me to start to put the tricks together, because that was one of the big hurdles at the beginning. I knew a bunch of tricks, but I didn't know how to put them together so much. I don't think he had a tutorial on that, on like how to actually put tricks together.
And he there were some things that he did where you could kind of put things together, but I mean, this video is just wonderful because you're so right. You were so on point where you were saying that he's just really improvising here, and a lot of the movements and the unique stuff that Nick is very into dance, and he's very into body movement, and it's not just about the poi, but the way that the poi move your body as well. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Nick and his style, and just the what he preaches as far as aesthetics and just movement. And it was wonderful. And you guys have a very similar vibe as far as the traveling stuff, and look how creatively and fun he is right here. He's just moving around, dancing, it's wonderful. I absolutely love this video. This is a long video. Go check out the full thing, please. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one, because we do want to get through some other things here, but wonderful reference. That's seriously one of my favorite videos of all time. So thank you very much for sending that one in. I've seen that one many times. So shout out to Nick. Now this is a wonderfully shot video that you did. So tell us about this video.
So ever since I was a kid, I would stare out. I lived out in the country, and I would stare out the window, and I would daydream to the music I was listening to and kind of create music videos in my mind. When I saw some of the stuff that I saw from Nick, from Drex, from Wojta, from all of these guys, and doing performances, doing choreographed routines, and this is in the Sacred Valley, so this is very much a multi-dream come true. This was recorded, edited, and posted on my birthday in 2022. We went up, we were in Pisac, Peru, in the Sacred Valley, where Nick, very close by to where Nick recorded that video we just watched. And I just had this inspiration listening to this song. It's called Warbringer by the Fat Rat. And it just all came together in my mind, instantaneously. And then I put the choreograph together. I practiced it a few times. We went up here. Catherine shot this with three different shots with Prana on her back.
As a newborn, I'm sure, because this was 2 years ago.
and it was just, like the tricks aren't necessarily like the most expert, but I wanted to record a music video of me doing something awesome in some awesome place where one of my heroes had also done it.
Absolutely, man.
And it was just a dream come true. And finally, like after dreaming about doing this ever since I was a kid, and here I am now, 35 years old, like just turning 35, doing it.
Yeah.
And doing it, in a way in which I'm like, yes, I feel like I've achieved a milestone. This is kind of like an unofficial rite of passage that I set up for myself in some way,
Yeah, for sure. And just the place and the what might I say, just while we're watching it, I mean, the quality of the video is immaculate. I mean, this is just beautiful setting, and you guys have a great camera here, and it's well edited. Like, this is just fantastic. I want to go back and listen to this with audio, and this video will be available in the description just for everybody that's curious to go see it and go watch it. This is on his YouTube channel. That link will be available, like I said, in the description. But yeah, what a beautiful just journey and a culmination of a lot of years work for you, and yeah, it was just very well done. I mean, seriously.
Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah, it was definitely from the heart and the mind and the whole body. Like, this is just and from the whole team, this is a team effort. Catherine did so good, because Prana's crying on her back half the time during this video. So that's muted and the song over. And it just it opened up a whole new level for me and what I want to grow in the flow arts industry, because I think that we've really only just begun with flow arts as a performance aspect. Tim Goddard is definitely setting milestones with the Dragon Mill and some of the stuff I've seen out of him. Some other flow artists, getting teams together and choreographing, but like bigger pieces. But imagine like more involved people getting together and doing stuff to music, because I see big time musicians and big time flow artists doing huge work together. That has been a huge goal of mine, and will be for some time, is to take flow arts to that sort of extreme level. So I'm even like lip syncing in that video,
I see it. It was great. It was great. It's very true. Very true to yourself. It was good. It was great.
Yeah.
Very humble, very, very wholesome. Now, this is an interesting video that we have here for the next one. I don't know if I'm familiar with this artist, and I'm curious about what struck you about this video.
Okay, so the truth comes out. I didn't get into flow arts to become a teacher. I didn't get into flow arts to become a performer. I got into flow arts because of the awakening that I had, that I knew anything was possible. And so, speaking of like my childhood dream to create music videos, another one of my childhood dreams was to perform supernatural acts. In this case, with this guy Christian Giotti, telekinesis. I don't want to flow poi with the tethers. I want to flow poi without the tethers, because I beyond believe that is possible. And this guy, like, people will say it's an illusion, it's a trick, but right here, he has a number of different videos where he levitates a crystal ball, that little crystal ball, and other objects and stuff. And watch this. Like, I also admire contact juggling.
Yeah,
I'm not a very good contact juggler.
I'm not either, Jesse, but every time, I want to say the only reason I have respect for contact juggling, because of course I have respect for any art that is done to a high level, but I will say the reason that I have a particular respect for contact juggling is Surreal. Surreal is an incredible contact juggler, and he's, one of the best minds of the
Look at that.
Oh my God. This is unbelievable. Audio listeners, please go listen to that. That was just incredible. But just to finish my thought on that, one of the best poi minds of our generation is Surreal, and he was an incredible contact juggler. But wow, that I mean, seriously, that was a really unique and good reference video. I've never seen anything like that in my life. That was beautiful. Thank you very much for sending that in. Wow.
He's got a ton of stuff, and I just realized he was on a Bulgaria's Got Talent show with
no
his
kidding.
stuff. And that wasn't even one of the most, like in my opinion, his most influential and outstanding performances. He's got a number of videos, and it just takes flow arts almost to like that supernatural kind of creepy even, you know,
totally just like spooky,
like
dude,
is this an illusion? Because it's one thing when you see flow arts for the first time and the fire spinning or the LED and your mind can't put together and you're just like, how are these people moving these objects in such a way? But you can see the tether, and with the juggling it's like you can see the momentum in the arms. But when stuff like that, you're just like, how is that possible? So to me, the Qigong, which is known as Taoist yoga in some circles, it's a study of the life force energy that's flowing inside and outside of us, combined with flow arts. Sometimes I like to even say flow arts is Qigong done with a physical object, where if you're really concentrating on the alignment of your body, the movement of your breath, and the movement of the prop together, it feels like one big energy circuit. And instead of like putting energy into something and eventually you're getting exhausted, right, because it's a workout, you can actually generate energy performing flow arts. And I've had a couple of dreams, like sleeping dreams, where I've actually performed telekinesis, and I experienced what it felt like to be able to move an object with just energy. And I think that's so fascinating. I beyond believe it. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if it will happen, but I'm going to keep going with my flow arts.
It's the dreamer and the visionary and the artist in yourself, man.
And I've been in the presence of other flow artists that are so connected with their prop that it practically looks like their prop is levitating or moving on its own. And so it felt like that's like the in-between point. That's the point where I'm still like coming up to now. You know, and
I mean, it's really crazy. Like the connection that I have, just on a personal level, the connection that I have to my poi and to my props are, I mean, I think it's an overused term as far as like, it's an extension of us. I think it's overused, but it's very accurate though, because like my poi, like I know how to use my poi in the same way that I know how to use my body. It's very much like intrinsically a part of my human being as far as my development and my nature. Like, you know, it's something that I like yearn for, you know? So I get that one.
It's a very intimate relationship. You know, they might not be as valuable as your hands, but it almost feels like they're a very close second to them, you know, like
absolutely.
You would very much miss, like if all the poi in the world were to disappear and you never be able to spend poi again.
Oh God, no.
Right?
No, sorry. Whoa, spooky. No, sorry.
I'm just saying, just to make a point, it's like we have these massive connections with these seemingly inanimate objects.
Of course.
This is your partner. It's not just your poi. They're your partner. They're your buds. They're your friends.
Yeah, they very much are. Sorry, that was funny. So I believe, Joey, correct me if I'm wrong, we have one more video to get through, and then we'll go ahead and continue on with the remainder. The last video that we have to get through, this is quite an old video, and this is by Zan.
Yeah, this is by Zan Moore and Alien John.
And Zan Moore.
Yeah, there's Alien John. They created this amazing, I think it probably started as VHS and then they made it to DVD.
Yeah.
And there's Zan, super young Zan.
Yep.
And when I was working with Sacred Flow Art, I did a handful of interviews like you're doing. And my most successful and my final one was with Zan. And it was absolutely wonderful to interview him and talk to him about his life and his projects and how he came up with the tricks, which he didn't actually come up with Zan's diamond. He actually popularized it,
right,
and taught it very well. But I got to talking with him about this. This is called the Encyclopedia. This is volume 2, and arguably the more successful of the two. and I got him to put it into a downloadable format. So you can actually, people who are new or even advanced, like this brings up stuff that a lot of people who are more advanced would really benefit from. This is a free download on encyclopedia.com. I think it's encyclopedia.com. That you can check out. He's got an interview with Nick on here. He's got an interview with a lot of other obviously popular flow artists and poi spinners.
There's Nick, our boy. There's Nick.
Yeah,
killing it. So this is a really wonderful video and a series that was put together by a lot of the visionaries of the earlier days of tech poi. And I mean, the groundwork that they did is really under-spoken about and under-referenced, I feel like, because there's so many. There was so much work that was done by these people to like even just the visuals of actually breaking down the patterns, and there was a lot of work being done by these people very early on that really made our understanding of poi what it is today. So wonderful reference.
I feel like this and the Vulcan tech gospel kind of go hand in hand together. This is a lot of very expert fundamentals, foundational practices for anyone who really wants to take their poi spinning to like the nth degree, to whatever level they would like to.
Absolutely. So tell me, I do want to get into your YouTube channel, because we talked about it very briefly, but tell us some of the struggles that you've had, or some of the triumphs and the good moments about having a YouTube channel and creating content. What were some of the trials and tribulations of putting out videos? So
speaking to people out there, because I really encourage other people to do this stuff, because one of the two of the fundamental things a lot of people I think aren't aware of is, one, your mind is going to tell you Nick's already done it, Drex has already done it, Tim's already done it, Jesse's already done it, I don't need to do it, no one's going to appreciate it, no, it's not going to go anywhere, right? It's already been done. And it's like, yes, in a way, but everyone has a unique way of teaching, and the way that it will come out might shed light on another group of people who wouldn't understand it the same from Nick, Drex, or me, or anybody else. Flow arts, even though it's bigger than it's ever been, is still a very small, lesser known practice, and we need more people to put it out there. So you have to face that inner doubt that says no one's going to like it. So getting over that for myself was a challenge, or saying, oh, this guy's just ripping off, Nick and Drex, or this guy that, he learned it from, and he's just like trying to get famous, or whatever plays off in people's head that I think is playing off, in my head. So basically self critique and judgment that isn't actually there in front of you, but still is inside of you. So getting over that hump was definitely a challenge. Being in front of a camera in general was a challenge. Being able to talk to an audience that isn't there, that is there or is going to be there, and you don't know who they are, and you don't know how they're going to take it.
Yeah.
That's another hump, So those are the initial things that were tough. And then you've got the camera angling, you've got the lighting, you've got the editing, and you're trying your best to do the tricks right the first time, not so that you don't make a fool out of yourself, but so that you don't have to do copious amounts of editing to make sure that you don't, that you make it look as good as possible.
Very accurate. Very accurate. Yeah. And I love that you said that about the personal doubt and the self-criticism that we all feel, but on certain levels with content creators. And, like I had this discussion with my friend the other day about putting out, tutorials that are already just widely available. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it, but, maybe it is important to, maybe some people do want to learn the fundamentals from your specific self, and they want to learn the way that you're doing it, or the things that you have to say about this head trick or the idea or the concept. So yeah, very good insight right there.
You could do it like this. So when I started creating 1-minute tutorials, and I posted them on Instagram, and then the owner of Sacred Flow Art saw them, and he reached out to me. This was back in late 2019. And he said, hey, I'm starting this business. Would you, care to make a poi tutorial a week for me, and I'll pay you? And I said, yeah, sure. I also have a partner. Maybe she creates one for you too. And then that turned into also doing a blog post and an Instagram post. So we'd be making these tutorials pretty consistently every single week for 2.5 years. And that built up over time. At this point now, with studying like encyclopedia and thinking about, okay, I'm not always getting paid to create tutorials, but I want to still create tutorials. What I did is I found like a trick or a series of tricks that I know that my students wanted or needed to learn. And then I built them from the ground up, teach them the basics, but also in the same tutorial, maybe you make it in chapters and work someone up to something that you're at now, that you would like to teach like in advanced. Therefore, you have a tutorial that's not just for beginners, but for intermediate and advanced as well. And you kind of put it all together. This is my theory of maybe how we could make little mini encyclopedias, little instead of like 5-minute videos, we make 15-minute videos, and we really like build it up over time. And I think that could go a long ways. We'll have to see what happens of that. I have a small handful on my channel.
Y'all go check out Jesse's channel. He has a really lots of great tutorials that he's made, and I feel like your channel really resonates with me on the same level that even like Drex and Nix does, in the same way that you have a really similar goal and a really similar approach. And I mean that in a good way, not in a way that you're, like you said earlier, of like ripping someone off or like doing exactly what they did, but you're putting your own taste on it. And I feel like that's very important, because the more people that we expose to it, the better. You're living proof of that. And that's how you live, right? That's like your existence essentially is teaching and traveling and, promoting the art to a lot of different people that have never seen it before. So I think it's really good that you've had the kind of base about your teaching, and you have tons of, basic level and even going into intermediate stuff, which is so important, as much as we want to see. I feel like there's very few of us that are looking for like ridiculous tech video, like ridiculous tech, like tutorials. There's a lot of people that are looking to get started and people that are working on fundamentals and the groundwork of Poi. So you very much provide that to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I would like to provide it for more. One of the challenges, not just with creating Poi tutorials, but teaching in general, is there's a lot of people out in the world who they don't have the money to be able to afford props. All of their energy is going into like basic needs. And so Catherine and I, we've applied for there's a Flow Arts grant actually out there, and see if we can get some income coming in from philanthropists, so to speak.
I love that term. That's awesome.
So that we can actually just buy practice props, go to places where they can't afford lessons, and just teach them and give them their first flow prop, and hopefully teach them enough that they can start to spread it throughout their own community and grow flow arts.
That's so wonderful. I love that.
In more impoverished places. Yeah, because a part of my idea is I'm putting flow arts out there into the world with these tutorials for anyone who has access to the internet. And I am finding that more places around the world have access to the internet, but they don't necessarily have access to supplies that they need for the props, the time that they need to review the tutorials and learn them. And there's no teachers actually inside. So they're either having to build themselves up from scratch, like the original people did, who did it without the internet, and who did it with basically anything, just strings with weights attached to them. Give them something that will boost their feeling and their enthusiasm a bit more, because I think that's where it will help to grow the flow arts industry in general. Is spread it to the places that it's not so prevalent, that it's not so active, because you're seeing it really boom in the US and Europe and a couple places other than that, but nowhere really in Africa. I mean, we worked with, in South Africa, like the only big flow arts businesses in the world, in the whole continent.
Yeah.
In Namibia, we worked with the only flow arts performers in the whole country that have been into it for 20 years. She's been into it for 20 years. and literally like pretty much nothing else has been organized in the entire country.
That's
Right.
so cool. That's so cool. What an achievement. And I absolutely love hearing that. Because poi is one of those unique things where you don't really need, like, you can put a weight on, you can put a tennis ball on the end of shoestrings, or put a sock and put rice in it. Like, you can do tons of stuff. So a question I do want to get to you about is, what specs do you prefer? Let's get into your specs. What kind of specs do you like for yourself?
So I'm definitely more of an experiment, still in an experimental phase for myself, because it's like I have poi from Home of Poi that are my favorite poi, but they're coming apart. And they're coming apart so much I've had to like tie, so the tethers are steadily getting shorter.
You know why
But
they're
then-
coming apart, Jesse? Is because they're old as fuck, dude. Home of Poi went out of business like a while ago. Sorry, not
I
to
know,
age
and
you.
damn
And
it,
it's
I was
wonderful,
almost like
dude.
and I was almost a platinum member. Shit.
Keep using
I've
them,
got so
bro.
many points filled up and they're still gone.
Keep using them, bro. But yeah, Home of Poi, like, I poke fun because Home of Poi is old as fuck. But it's like, yeah, what, so reminiscent, because Home of Poi was the first like online order of poi that I ever made. Home of Poi was the one back then, dude. Yeah.
So what I've settled, because a lot of my focus with flow arts and going around the world is to perform it, because that gets the most attention. So we got sponsored by Crispy Clown.
Oh no.
Still there?
Peace. Pause. T.
I'm out.
Him?
Are you?
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
No, and 3, 2, 1. You said Crispy Clowns. You got sponsored by.
We got sponsored by Crispy Clowns, and they shipped us a set of fire poi across the ocean from Portland, Oregon, all the way to Cape Town.
Shout out to
which was-
Lance. That's my boy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lance. That guy's
And
awesome.
Moira.
Crispy Clowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. That's awesome.
So what we requested from them was we had silicone knobs with some Technora attached to them. And call me crazy, but I actually prefer chains as it relates, like small link chains. I know I have Technora too. I haven't used static poi yet, so I don't have that to compare to. Literally, that started getting popular while I was on this journey, and it's not accessible where I'm at.
No judgment, dude. No judgment. Yeah, I mean, plenty of specs work. That's really cool though. So you like chains. Tell me why you like chains in particular.
Okay, so let me finish the specs. So
Sure.
we've got the silicone stubby knobs with Technora, like just like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of Technora attached to them, with swivels attached to them. I really prefer swivels. I don't know why people don't. I feel like with orbitals and all sorts of different tangles, it's like so much more challenging. And then we've got a chain attached to it with a medium monkey fist head on the end of it. And in total, it equals 22 inches of length. And that is kind of like the average between my and Catherine's arm, because we got 2 sets of them. And with that, I know how many fingers to wrap around to get it into
Sure.
the shorter. And I don't want too super long. I started with really super long poi. I didn't really like them for performances, because wrapping the tether too many times around my hands and fingers would like get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer chains, because with the tangles and stuff, I noticed my Technora leashes would get frayed. Like they're pretty frayed right now from the performing that we've done. And so with the chains, the ones that Crispy Clown got me, they're just small enough to like not feel super heavy, but big enough that they're not gonna break. They're never gonna break. And I like that. I like the longevity that I notice with them. And I've gotten used to doing tricks with those chains. I've gotten used to hitting the tangles or interacting the chains together to the point where it basically feels like just a heavy rope to me, and the links are not so spaced out that it doesn't like clump together and give you kind of a feeling of like they're going in and out, almost like a stretch. So I've been able to develop the muscle memory with these things, and I'm like, this is going to be great for longevity. And so they're also a little bit heavier, so
That's
it's a
true.
little bit more of a workout for me, which is good. I do combine my natural physical fitness with them. So, and it makes all of my practice props feel that much easier, that much
Yeah,
lighter. And then because that's how I take it. I take it from my day props and I move it into my fire props pretty quickly. And
sure.
so focusing on on a more challenging to maneuver prop makes all the other props that much easier for me. So I like to challenge myself ahead of time so that it's not as challenging, or it flows more easily whenever someone like gives me something new, or I'm practicing with like decades old poi that are falling apart.
Yeah.
You know,
I
it's not.
poke fun, but it's nice. It's good. So topic I want to get into is, what advice do you have for beginners or people that are looking to gain some momentum in their flow arts journey?
Yeah, that's I've thought about this for a while, and my one general rule, whether it's flow arts, whether it's yoga, whether it's anything that you want to do with your life, is consistency. Consistency is the number one rule. It's the
Yep,
only rule in a
it
way,
is.
because
It really is.
there's going to be things that no amount of teacher, no amount of prep of any different kind is going to prepare you for. You're going to be presented things you didn't expect.
Or
You're going to be
even
presented.
the amount of natural talent that you have for a thing. You have to show up time and time again. You have to show up on the days that you don't want to, because arguably the days that you do not want to be there and the days that you don't want to show up and you don't want to put in the work, those are the most important days for you to be there. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to be there on the days that you want to be there for,
Of
but
course.
it's hard being there on the days that you don't want to be.
Uh,
But man,
I
does
like to say,
it produces some incredible rewards.
it's not enough for you to show up for yourself when it's convenient for you. You must show up for yourself when it's inconvenient for you, because that's the times that you're needing to level up. That being said, there is a line between, you don't want to practice flow arts when you're in a really crappy state because you don't want to train the wrong muscle memory into your body. And you will if you do all of your tricks incorrectly. So you want to either be in a good state or kind of be on the cusp of it. And when you're new, or when you're just developing yourself and your momentum, there's going to be plenty of times when you're on that cusp and you could easily be like, I'll do it later. No, that's the time when you need to practice. And you don't necessarily need to practice a lot. I tell people, depending upon what level you want to take it to, for beginners and people who are growing into intermediate or into semi-professional or just starting out, I say you need to practice a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes a day, 4 to 6 days a week. That's the bare minimum.
Sure. I
Because
think
when you
that's a fair goal.
you at least need to go over and I noticed this throughout learning from Nick. If I didn't, like in the beginning stages, if I didn't go over some of the stuff that I had learned within 2 or 3 days, I might have lost the muscle memory, and all the practice kind of goes out the window, and it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. So you have to, and I remember looking at one of your interviews, and you're saying that you got like Zeb's mess or some trick, but then you came
Sebs,
back to it
yeah.
and you're like, where did it go?
So, dude,
And
yeah, I'm experiencing this on a kind of more drastic scale than I ever experienced anything with Tupoi. Is that with my juggling, the
oh
air
geez.
the margin of error for poi juggling is very small, and so you notice the little differences way more drastically than I ever noticed them with Tupoi. And it really, I mean, what you're saying about consistency, that applies so much, because if you're just, let's say just for poi juggling's sake, like, you have to be doing it consistently, otherwise you will never really get there. You won't. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
takes a really severe level of, like, not even so many, like, I have to do this many hours every day. It's like I have to show up at least for a little bit every day. I have to run through the
Mm-hmm.
motions every day, and it's a part of our, like you were saying, it's a part of our self-care routine, and a part of our like our health care or mental health routine. So
Mm-hmm.
and I love that you've introduced yoga and the ability. One thing I did want to say is, I don't want to quote you verbatim, but you were just something along the lines of being able to remove the other distractions mentally and being able to apply your mindset completely to what you're doing. That's something that I've struggled with a lot throughout my time, is being able to put away, like, compartmentalize what I'm working on and remove all the other things that is happening and try to focus completely on what I'm doing. I think that's it's a skill on itself. And I think that it's good to be paired with what we're doing, because it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, I've been studying this, and what I call it is generating a manual flow state, because it doesn't just happen with a prop. Like, we experience it with a prop, and lots of times the second you realize you're in it, you're out of it. So how to hold on to that flow state as it relates to practicing poi or anything in your life. And I've been studying this too. This is definitely alongside with, like, kind of the supernatural or telekinetic practices, because when you're in the flow state, when you're really on your game, it's magic. That's how we describe it. It's unexplainable, but at the same time, it can be explainable. And how I usually guide my students is start with that 15, 20, 30 minutes, and don't try anything necessarily super advanced, and notice what sort of state that you're in right now, and accept yourself as you are right now. Shift your posture a little bit, take a few breaths, do a little bit of stretching, takes 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, dude.
Notice and observe how that shifts your mental emotional state.
It's actually so important. It's actually so important, dude. This is something that I've taken more seriously as my, like, personal and professional life has developed in the art. Like, when I walk into the studio after work, after whatever else I'm doing, and I try to get straight into things, I'm like, what am I doing, dude? Like, what am I doing? I gotta like sit down and stretch and think about, what am I gonna do today? What am I gonna do in this flow session today? What am I gonna focus on? Where is my focus going to be in regards to improvement, or if I want to, focus on having a creative day, or if I want to focus on having practice. I feel like and Bo made a really good point on this topic, and I want to shout out Bo, because he basically said, if you listen to his interview, he said, be specific in everything that you're doing, whether you want to be creative, or you want to train, or you want to focus on one aspect of this or the other. He puts a huge emphasis on, the mental focus on whatever you're trying to do. And I think the stretching and the meditation and, that whole mental aspect of being focused and being present and really thinking about your session before you go into it. And like you said, being honest with where you're at. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's very important for folks to try to take that in and be a little bit more present in their practice.
And people don't realize that the prop does take a toll on your body and will, especially on the subtle small muscles and the connective tissues. You can definitely injure yourself if you over practice in an unintelligent way. Now, Bo obviously has his technique and is able to practice for large periods of times in order to get to the level that he's at, which is unprecedented. But I think that for a lot of beginners, don't worry about Bo. Don't worry about Don't worry about us. Don't worry. Don't compare yourself. If you get to that state, great. But a really interesting thing happened on this journey. When after Prana was born in Quito, Ecuador, her first journey with us, we got invited to be fire performers for their first international surfing competition out on the Galapagos Islands. On the Galapagos Islands, we flew out there, we performed for them. And in between islands, Catherine and I were taking, because we did gigs on San Cristobal Island, which attracted us to getting gigs on another island. On our journey over there, on the boat, was Johnny Douglas.
No kidding, dude. No, of course. Johnny. Shout out to Johnny. Mr. Douglas, dude. I'm going to send this to him. Shout out to Johnny, man. That's awesome.
And I had never, at first I didn't know who he was, because and it's really interesting because I had just taught a poi tutorial for the Sacred Flow Art channel like starting up your poi from like doing kind of an air wrap or a hyperloop that I learned from Johnny. Like I did the tutorial in Quito, Ecuador, and then days later I'm meeting the guy that I took the lesson from originally.
That's so cool.
And got to pick his brain. And I found out from him, tying in what my point is that he practiced so much that his fingers would bleed. Like he would literally break his skin.
Me too.
And I'm like, oh geez. Like, so I know that people like get so into it. Like the reason why I'm probably not as good as I could be is because I haven't taken it that far, but also I have multiple different interests. Like I have my life is a juggling act within a juggling act.
Well, you're a very multifaceted individual, Jesse. This is one of the cool things about this interview is you're very like you're multi-pronged. You have a lot of stuff going on, right? So
the key is inside.
I love it, dude.
If I could make one rule for the whole world, like one law, it'd be every human being on the planet must focus for a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes a day inwards. Give yourself some time just to focus on yourself, just to get to know your blood flow, your organs, your posture, your breathing. There's so much that people get lost when they're thinking that reality is all happening outside, like where my eyes are going and my consciousness is focused on out there. When you don't realize the whole of your reality is being built from the inside out. It's all being originated. It's all in here. Everything out there is in here somewhere. And people don't realize that you got a lot more control over your reality and how many things you're able to juggle, so to speak, or grow,
but
not by stressing yourself out and over practicing. A lot of the practice can happen internally, because what Johnny got me to realize is, he was really striving, as a lot of people do. And I realized from your interview with Mel, that there's a lot of people out there, they want to be the best.
Yeah.
But what the hell is the best? Like,
what does that even mean? It's so
whenever I watch one of Bo's videos, I'm always like jaw drop. Whenever I watch one of Ty Rocheford's videos, jaw drop. Whenever I watch one of Wojta's performances, jaw drop. Every single one of them is jaw dropping. How can I gauge though which one of them is the best?
Yeah.
To me, that's not a thing. So instead of focusing on the best, what would be your best? What would be, if you could do something, like where does your fantasy mind go? Where does your imagination go? Because you can achieve that. You can manifest that even. If you stop training your mind to, it's all good if you're comparing yourself for constructive criticism, as in like, oh, I would like to be able to do that. I'm going to work up to being able to do that. And that feels good. But when you look at other people and you're like downtrodden because you're like, I'm never going to get there. You're never going to get anywhere because you're feeling, bad about your poi practice rather than enabled by these people. And that's a big thing that I want to drive home.
That was such a positive message, man. No, that was such a positive message. Like seriously, I that was one of the more inspiring things that I've heard from a guest on the podcast ever. I really liked that you brought that up, because this is conversations that I've been having with my brother recently. Is like, the social media and all the external factors about the ways that we feel about ourselves, and they affect our own perception of our journey. And I think it can be, you have to, if it's in a harmful state where the external factors are affecting you in a negative way, you need to go back to your origin and essentially like do some personal dives on why you do it. What's the goal? If there is one, maybe sometimes the goal is just to be happy, and the goal is to feel creative, and the goal is to feel fulfilled in your own, work and your own practice. And, we do get very caught up in, of course, like myself, I'm a very competitive individual. I've been like that my whole life. So like growing up, I was really into poi, and I was like, man, I want to be really good. I want to be really, really good. Yeah. Right.
And
so
that's
I kind of
awesome.
motivated myself, and it is good. It is good, but it comes with its own layer of, this is something that me and Nick got into, is he was basically saying that like some of his favorite people to work with are beginners in the way that the true, like, the feeling of being happy and being satisfied actually came along way before we got really good. Came along when we were like
Yeah.
discovering, we were being creative, and it was this whole new world that was opened up to us. And it was back when we were, I don't
It's
know.
about it's about rejoining with that child mind, with that mind that's
Yeah, dude.
non-judgmental and non-critical. It's all good to strive towards something, but you're actually going to slow your progress if you become overly critical of yourself. You're
Totally.
not actually going to go as far. And so yeah, the last two things is what I would want to share with beginners, and this is so important for me to share, is one, learn about how to celebrate yourself. We're also taught not to be egotistical, which I understand in one sense, but there's two different types of egotisticness. One is separating your ego or your human self out from everybody else and being like, I'm separate from them. I'm better than them. That's not so
Mhm.
good with the ego.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to be egotistical, to be enthusiastic about yourself, regardless of what other people are doing.
Right.
Not comparing yourself, celebrating yourself. I love myself. I love what I'm doing. I love the progress that I made so far in life or in poi.
Yeah,
That's
man.
that's a skill. That's not something that's innate within us. That's not something that most of our parents gave us or that was passed down through the ages. Very few and far between. It's a skill that you must kind of fake it till you make it. You
You
kind of have
know,
to do it, and then eventually you like smile at yourself and stop taking yourself seriously,
yeah,
and then you're like, yeah, I am having fun, and I do like
yeah,
what I'm doing. I do like myself. Yay
yeah.
life.
Jesse, you're making some great points, man. This is gonna run a little bit longer because I got some more stuff to say about that. I'll be honest with you. All right, so
I
I
know
did
we
an
we get
interview.
we go forever. Yeah.
We'll go. It is my podcast. Fuck it, we're running it long. All
Amen.
right, so I did an interview recently. Shout out to Taz, man. I did this interview, all right, and he basically, I don't want to quote him verbatim, but he had something along the lines of saying, a lot of the groundwork has been laid out, and there's not really, like, I don't, again, this is no disrespect to Taz, but in my mind, I took it as like, there I kind of took it in the sense of like, well, dude, I'm doing a ton of like creative stuff. I'm producing creative things. I'm pushing the boundary in my own way. And I think the reason that I made that point is not a flex on who I am and what I'm doing necessarily, but it was more of like a motivation for those of us out there that dream big and they want to create their own and they want to make their own impact. I think that's the reason that I made that statement, and the reason that I kind of was like, dude, like, I'm an example of somebody who can be creating and be like pushing what you're doing to a higher level. And I want other people to feel that level of inspiration. So when you're talking about ego and like egotistical and stuff, like, you have to have a healthy level of ego where you're able to look at other people and the work that they're doing and praise them and praise their creativity and their artistic nature, and their
Mm-hmm.
creation, as well as believing in yourself and believing in your own mind, and knowing that you also possess the tools to be creative and to push your boundary of what you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
celebrating the things that you've accomplished. Like, dude, there's been days in the studio where I do something like that, I have to think about. I have to take a moment and be like, I never thought that I would be able to be there ever. I never thought that I'd be able to hit
Mm-hmm.
this exact thing that I'm working on, and I finally did it, and it's so rewarding, dude. That feeling is
Remember that
immaculate.
feeling.
Yeah.
It's a skill to keep coming back to that feeling, to keep remembering that, and to interrupt all other thoughts that don't serve your progress with that enthusiasm and that feeling, that remembrance of the rewards, because it will start to watch how quickly you start learning tricks or whatever you want to learn when you're able to generate that feeling manually,
Right.
because you're not focusing on your wants anymore. And this comes to my final thing that I want to suggest for people, that I
Absolutely.
invite people to reach out for me for. You've mentioned, and a lot of people mention, goals. Now, goals are like New Year's resolutions, and we know that most people drop their New Year's resolutions after like 1 month or like a few weeks. It's like statistically proven. Goals are similar like that, because think about the energy of a goal. What you're saying to yourself, what you're communicating to yourself is this thing is not here and now. This thing is out of reach. This is a maybe. Maybe I'll achieve it. Maybe I won't. It's a goal. It's something I'm going towards. It's something I want. Putting off that vibration, people don't realize it because the word goal is so innate in our culture and in our developed mind. And we have not practiced enough to recognize everything happens now. And the now is quickly moving by us. And the future is a big maybe, because it's not guaranteed. And the past is a memory. It's another perspective. All we actually have is the now. And the now is actually milliseconds into the future because it takes a little bit of time for our brains and our nervous systems to be able to take in that light and put it into information, and then we understand what it is we're looking at. But it's still our own perspective. So how to shift that? Catherine and I developed the concept of what we call future observations. These aren't goals, though they haven't necessarily happened yet. You're going to start seeing them and feeling them as if they have, and start stating your goals in the present tense as if you've already achieved them. Seeing yourself and feeling yourself as if the goal has already been obtained shifts your vibration. And of course, we might have that sabotager mind come and be like, you're full of shit. That's not true. That ends up coming, on the other hand, eliminating doubts and feeding your own mind affirmations. Because they've also done tests. The brain doesn't know the difference between something clearly visualized and something actually happening. And so this is another thing. Write down your goals as future observations, things that you're observing in your future as if they're already happened. Because in the future, it's going to be now. In the past, it wasn't now, that's already past. The now is what we have, and that's what we got to feel. Feel your now with things that you would like to experience in the future and state them as if they have already happened, and find what you'll be really interesting. That this is like a flow art. Your brain will get confused, and you'll start to have that sabotager come into it, and you got to learn to clear that shit out. But eventually you start to develop the skill, the tech, as it were, of the mind that helps to, one, help you to achieve that thing, because you'll develop a restless body and you'll eventually want to move into action and practice. Or two, manifest. You might shift your vibration and manifest like the teacher that you need, or the prop that you need, or the skill will just click. I don't know, you've seen the Matrix.
The belief in yourself that you can do it, and just believing that, like, hey, I can do this. I just need to believe in myself and put it to the test, really pursue it.
You don't even have to believe in yourself. You just have to keep thinking about it.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree.
In the end, it's unbelievable. So you don't even have to believe in it, because it's going to be unbelievable, the types of things that you can achieve. And this interconnects with all the different things that I do for a living personally, as well as do for a living training other people, whether it be flow arts, yoga, professional trainings of all different types. Is you have to see it and feel it. Just practice seeing and feeling something. Let your imagination soar, and then write it down. Write it in hand, in the present tense, in as much detail as possible, so that you could speak it to someone else and they could see it in their mind. This is the magic of our consciousness. This is the magic flow art of like conscious creation. And it really works.
I mean, dude, Jesse, you're proof that it works, man. Look at you. Look at all the things that you've done, man. You're such an inspiring dude. And I've really, I'm not trying to like even necessarily close it out right now, but like, dude, this has been a wonderful interview and a great conversation. And I really, I don't ever know the type of vibe or the type of interactions that I'll have with somebody going into an interview, but I just want to say that I'm pleasantly surprised, and I've really enjoyed how inspiring of a person that you are, and you really live what you preach in a lot of ways, which is really fucking cool, man, and it's pretty rare.
Thanks. Yeah, and I more than wish, I intend for it to be not so rare. Let's push it towards being uncommon, because to me, like I said towards the beginning, like flow arts and the stuff that we're doing, to me, is the key to human evolution. Like, this is the solution for us. We play professionally. We're going more into our childlike state, but in a more organized manner. And that's, to me, is flow arts or dexterity
God damn it.
play.
That was beautiful. That was beautifully said, man. Joey, we've completely skipped over Joey. Okay, Joey needs to do his thing. All right, so let's pass it over to Joey. He has a question to ask you. We'll let him hop on the mic, do his thing. All right, so we'll go ahead and Joey hop on now.
Cool. So this question actually comes from Patrick's brother, Sky, at Skylar the Creator. He asked, do you prefer someone that's brand new to Poi or somebody that has already gone through it and has a little bit more experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so not that anyone should base their experience off of my experience, but I came into the game with a bunch of experienced flow artists. And even though I wasn't as experienced as them, I meant to take flow arts like to the nth degree, to a high level. And it was very, very challenging to get them to cooperate. And I ended up being seen as bossy when all I was trying to be was direct.
Right.
Like see who's serious, who's in it to win it.
Right.
I went through 2.5 flow teams that fell apart due to dramas with experienced flow artists, to the point where I was like, fuck it, I'm going down to scratch. I'm going to train people from scratch.
Totally.
And so for a while, I would say I prefer brand new beginners because they don't have a point of reference, and I can train them in a way that not only do I feel will suit them, that would have helped me, that I would have given myself advice being this far along in it, but also I could train them and consider, what do I want to do with this team, and set up like choreographies and stuff like that.
Right.
And so it even though it's slower in progress in some ways, it's also faster in progress because when people have you to associate with and they don't necessarily have a point of reference, and your bossiness is kind of your directness is what they hired you for, to be their teacher, it becomes easier to do what I do as a profession, to get people to kind of collaborate and work together and do what I want them to do what I feel like they should be doing. And when you put that off on other experienced performers, they don't like that. And so I'm working on discovering ways that enable me to do what I really want to do with flow arts and work with experienced people who are also experienced. Because the issue is I was working with a lot of semi-professionals. And since working in Cape Town with Duncan Greenwood of Flow DNA, the owner of Flow DNA, other people who are farther along in their Poi profession understand how things need to work out. And you kind of cut brass tacks, and everybody has developed that directness and that communication skill where it's like, okay, we're experiencing a challenge or something, but we're all in this together and we have to do it. And it's not about egos. It's not about drawing everybody apart with their own agendas, whether they're conscious or not. We all kind of have our own agendas. But we've all discussed what the agenda is. So we set up the Animus Flow Fest, a reoccurring flow arts festival in Cape Town. And so everybody is together with that same focus, and that ended up becoming so powerful. But it's also, it took me out of like the figurehead in it. I was just like another one of the heads in it.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't my plan. I was involved, and my plan was within the head plan, but the head plan was, let's host an awesome flow festival. And so I really enjoyed that, and I would like to experience more of that. Maybe I predict more of that will happen once we get to Europe.
That's awesome. Yeah, and like you said, kind of writing that fine line between the newer people and like the more advanced people, trying to find a common ground of communication between them too. Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you answering that question. I'll kick it back over to Patrick.
Cool. So yeah, there's a tremendous amount of energy that goes behind not just like, with any profession in the world. There's some that are more acceptable than others. And I believe that every single professional has to go through plenty of struggle and strife and challenges in order to take themselves to like the level in which they can make a living and a successful, productive, and enjoyable, fulfilling prosperous life with it. But when you're going with something that's fairly new to the industry, that's not necessarily known for generating copious amounts of resources or money or anything like that, it's all the more challenging, you know?
Yeah.
And so that is going to put our minds and our emotions through the ringer. But let me tell you, like, I have been run dry multiple times in my life on my journey with poi, with traveling, you know, totally dry, physically, mentally, emotionally, broke, no money left 6 or 7 times, you know, down to zero. But what I noticed is that when you get down to that point and you just surrender to it, the up is on its way. The reward is on its way. It's to the point where it's a guarantee. It's not even a gamble. So you just keep putting yourself out there physically, mentally, emotionally. You're going to get good payback one way or another. I guarantee it.
You know what's so inspiring about the way that you live life, Jesse, is like a lot of people, I think boring is so, like, the safe route is so boring sometimes, you know? And I find that
there's nothing more dangerous. There's nothing more dangerous than safety.
Let's go, my man. That's such a great perspective. Like, seriously, you inspire me as an individual to live my life a little bit more freely and to take a little bit more chances. And the way that you're saying that, like, the greatest risk is being comfortable, like, I love that.
Yeah,
dude. That's beautiful. It's a great message.
Study internally, study the alchemy, study the patterns. You recognize it doesn't have to be a gamble. It doesn't have to be risk. I'm not a risk taker. I'm not a gambler. As crazy as that sounds.
Some people might disagree with you, but I understand what you're saying. I get it. I see
from
you.
The outside in, of course, what it looks like I'm doing is insane. No, no one believes in me. You know, I mean, maybe
I
they
believe
do.
in you, Jesse.
Maybe they do. Well, I'm unbelievable.
Yeah, you are.
And I celebrate
I agree
myself.
with you, brother. I agree with you. And you should.
What's hard for other people who don't have that reflectiveness, and I've been studying this has been because I've always cared a lot about people, like, to a fault. And I don't know, at this point, I kind of let people live their lives however they choose to, whether they're choosing to or not, because it's not my business to ever critique someone's life and that they're in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong thing. Who the hell am I to say that?
Right.
And I get that, but even though the intentions were pure, but what I'm still always looking into is, I know that I'm an inspiring person. I know there's a lot of inspiring people out there. But what gets an individual to act on that inspiration and keep acting on it? That's the $1 billion question.
That's a very interesting question that I still ask myself, as far as, you know, motivations and
to figure it out.
Yeah, dude.
Because you're going to have to face your fears. You're going to have to face and embrace your fears. It's inevitable, and it's going to be scary, and you might get injured. You know, something bad might happen.
Some people, I don't think, will ever, as crazy as this sounds, but I don't think everybody will ever be there. And I think that's kind of a reality that we have to face as individuals, as, you know, there's a possibility that I won't be there. There's a possibility that I don't go through that. What if I don't take the risk? What if I don't put myself out there? What if I never try it? I'll never be there, you know?
Well, I say we can play the what if game negative all we want, but can't we also play the what if game positive? And at the end of the day, what ifs are not in the present moment. You're not being present. You know, you're not in the now. Let go of the what if game. It usually doesn't pay off. You know?
You know, man, a lot of people will like say a similar sentiment. And I think that you're one of the examples of somebody who, like I said, actually lives that way. And I think it's so cool to talk to somebody who's just like, yeah, dude, I actually do it. I'm actually out here. Like, I do live in the present. You're very much like, you have so much responsibility on your plate. You know, you have your family with you. You're on the journey. You have to make it work. You have to overcome the challenges. And you know, you're just living proof that you're somebody that's out here actually doing it. And I can't say how much respect I have for you enough. I think that's a very beautiful thing. I think the way of you're living your life is just very inspiring for a lot of people. Hopefully somebody that's listening to this can take their own portion of what you're saying and apply it to their own lives in whatever facet that may be.
And I offer training. So if I may plug myself in here,
plug, dude, plug away, dog.
Full Circle Phenomenal. If you want training, it is an investment, but I guarantee results. And we start small. God damn it,
look how cool his shirt is. Look at it, dude. Look at that shirt, dog. It's so cool. All right, cool. Aside from the shirt.
Yep. We're going pro, but we're still having fun. You know, it's about finding the line between your work and your play and finding a way to harmonize those two. Because this Full Circle Phenomenal is my third business, actually. I didn't start with this sort of, success, and like I wasn't born into money or anything like that. So it's like I didn't buy my way into it.
Right.
I went through 2 entrepreneurships. I studied digital art, so I was like a web designer and a digital artist of sorts. But that was turning my hobby into a job, and I felt like I was always at work, and I ended up hating what I did as like something that I love to do. And then I did another thing, which was like a part-time concierge service, part-time assistant service. But then I'm just like realizing I'm just taking on other people's stress. And then I ended up not liking that either.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a challenge in and of itself to learn how to harmonize what you do for work with what you do for fun. And keep what you do for fun staying fun instead of just like starting to associate it as work. There's a fine line.
There really is, dude. There really is, for sure. Anything that you're passionate about, that you want to pursue and you want to be better at, it's going to take hard days of not feeling like this is the best thing in the world to be doing. But you got to believe in what you're doing.
You write it down as your future observations and put it in the present tense, and you keep rereading that stuff over and over and essentially brainwash yourself into it. You will get through those hard times, even if it means putting the thing down for a little while and not worrying about it. You don't have to give up, but you can give in. It's okay to fall apart. It's okay for the shit to hit the fan and for you to be absolutely at the mercy of it, have to surrender. In fact, those are some of the most enlightening moments, because you might have a spiritual experience where you recognize how supported you actually are. And sometimes that's the only way to get over our ego minds, is to have it break down.
Right.
And to be completely humbled or even humiliated. But like I said before, keep breathing. The up is on its way. Every down must equal an up, and every up must equal a down. Yeah. Learn how to neutralize. Learn how to just be with it and flow with it. Flow with life. Like, that's why I love flow arts. Flow arts is very much a life metaphor in and of itself.
It is. Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. And that goes into a discussion that I had with Nick that I feel like you really have kind of hit a similar point in describing. But Jesse, I want to say, we'll kind of close it out with some closing thoughts. I'll say some things here. I'll say, rarely do I leave an interview feeling as inspired personally as I have with this one. So I want to say thank you very much for sharing so much of your life and so much of your advice. And it's just been great, man. It's been really, really good. I feel like I say that a lot about interviews, and not to discredit any of the other ones that I've had, but you're a very interesting individual, and it's been just a wonderful conversation. I appreciate how much you've had to share about your personal and professional life and all of your journey. And thanks for showing us your beautiful family and giving us a little piece of slice of Jesse's life, man. All the best to Jesse. Support this guy.
Cheers. Yeah. Thanks so much. And I look to continuing on, let's keep this going, and always consider me a resource. I have tons of resources. I've been creating content for a while, and so I think about putting little bits of the things that I've learned online in different ways, so that if someone finds it or receives it, they can absorb the energy, and get a little bit more. And I'm obviously more than happy. Like I said, I'm more than happy to continue on any amount of conversations with you or with anyone else if they're worrying or challenged by something and they need some assistance, some support.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm here for.
Jesse's the man, dude. And there's so much advice that we can take from this conversation, as far as being I don't want to reiterate too much of what you said, but as far as being present and making actionable goals, I feel like that's kind of one of the biggest things that I take from this interview. And yeah, I mean, you're just living proof that, you know, it works, man. And you've really just shown it in your personal and professional life. And it's been a fantastic interview. Any last shout outs, any closing thoughts that you want to give us? Go ahead and deliver it now.
So I knew this was coming. So I wrote this down and I'm gonna read it. Shout out to anyone and everyone I've connected with around the world who has got so into flow arts that they've carried forth and are seeing this video now. Every single person I've interacted with has provided a single step to an entire path in my journey, and I'm grateful for all of them. And shout out to everyone I haven't yet connected with around the world who's into flow arts enough to be here today watching the Poidcast. And check out the rest of the interviews if this is your first Poidcast. They're awesome. You'll learn a lot. May our paths cross, and may we share a step to a pathway together in growing our lives ever epically. Please reach out via commenting or sending a message on Facebook or Instagram. We'll be in Egypt soon, then over to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, then to Turkey, then into Europe throughout all of 2024 and 2025. We'd love to not just meet you digitally, but meet you in person. And yes, we will be back in the United States, back in Oregon, and do a USA tour once this journey has completed, which is going to be maybe another 4 years from now. Oh, and here's the fam one more time if you guys want to.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and say goodbye. Say goodbye to the fam. But Jesse, I want to say I fully believe that I will come in contact with you and the fam. And I can't wait to meet you guys in person. And I wish you so much luck along your journey. And it's just been, you know, fantastic being able to connect digitally. But someday I will meet you. I fully believe that I will see you in person. So we'll go ahead and close it out. Everybody, give us a big old peace sign. And cheers to you guys. I hope you have a good, great start to your day. We're very late here. So Jesse and his beautiful family, thank you very much for being here and support them. It's been a wonderful episode 25. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and close it out. Peace out,
Thank
everybody.
you too.
Yeah, blessings.
25. Let's go. Peace out.